Welcome to Sober Sunrise, a podcast bringing you AA speaker meetings with stories of experience, strength, and hope from around the world. We bring you several new speakers weekly, so be sure to subscribe. We hope to always remain an ad-free podcast, so if you'd like to help us remain self-supporting, please visit our website at sober-sunrise.com. Whether you join us in the morning or at night, there's nothing better than a sober sunrise. We hope that you enjoy today's speaker.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name's Travis Albers, and I'm an alcoholic. Just start off by just thanking. It takes. Understand and can see that putting together a roundup like this takes a lot of work and a lot of self-sacrifice. It doesn't just happen. There's a lot of money and a lot of preparation, and really appreciate all that has been done for me, and just thank you, the committee, for being able to put on an event. We can all get together and share experience, strength, and hope. Tyler Feeks gave me a call, and I couldn't have called at a better time there. I was at work. I was working a night shift, and man, I didn't want to be there, and I wanted to be home with my wife, and I was getting a little bit of razz from the guys at work, and he called and just totally changed my day right around. And I probably I got the message and probably sat in my chair for about 5 minutes in absolute amazement. It was the longest time I paused ever. It was it was pretty mind blowing. I couldn't believe it. I got this joke just maybe to start off with a little bit of humor. I could probably recite it from my memory, but I don't know if I'd like to do that. I'd probably miss the punchline or something. So, feel free to laugh. Make me feel a little bit better anyway. But you don't have to. A friend forwarded me this. It says, "Now this is drunk. A man goes to a party and has too much to drink. His friends plead with him to let them take him home. He says no, he only lives a mile away. About 5 blocks from the party, the police pull him over. They check his license and ask him to get out of the car and walk the line. Just as he starts, the police radio blares out a notice a robbery is taking place in the house around the block. The police tell the party animal to stay put. They'll be back, and they run around the corner to the robbery. The guy waits and finally decides to drive home. When he gets there, he tells his wife he's going to bed and tell anyone who might come looking for him that he has the flu and he's been in bed all day. A few hours later, the police knock on the door. They ask if Mr. Smith is there, and his wife says yes. They ask to see him, and she replies he has been in bed all day and has been there. He's been in bed with the flu and has been there all day. The police still have his driver's license. They ask to see his car. She asks why. They insist on seeing his car, so she takes him to the garage. She opens the door, and there the police car, with lights on and everything, is sitting in this man's garage. This man told this story on his first AA meeting. I don't want to disappoint anyone, but I don't think my story is as intriguing as that would be. But I guess... I don't know if there's anyone new here today. If you probably have your attention for the next 5 minutes. I know that because I was new once and I didn't really pay too much attention. But if you're new or to the fellowship or the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and you hear one thing that I have to say, I just hope that you hear that there's a solution to alcohol and alcoholism, and we can recover one day at a time. It was explained to me in the beginning. I always why does someone come around here for 30 years? And I always thought, why doesn't this guy get it already? Can't he just figure this thing out and start some more controlled drinking? And it was explained to me, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. And you take a cucumber and you pickle it and it turns into a pickle, and you can't take the you can't take the pickle out of the pickle, you know. So they said, you're pickled, you know, and I thought, okay. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous really has no monopoly on sobriety, but we do have a program of action and recovery that has helped millions of people stay sober. You know, I'm not a reformed drinker. I don't go on crusades over drinking. You know, I just know that I cannot safely drink alcohol myself. You know, when I first got into Alcoholics Anonymous, I just I thought I was such a bad person. You know, I did so many horrible things, and I was just such a horrible person. I was just such a bad person, and you know, working with some people, and slowly I began to realize that I wasn't a bad person. I was a sick person. You know, and but I had this hopelessness and this feeling. My life just felt absolutely hopeless and totally meaningless. You know. And that's how I felt when I came into the rooms. Now there really is a difference between communication and listening, and I hope today that maybe God can inspire and work through me, and I'll be able to communicate a message, and maybe not it won't be the message that you hear, but you know, hopefully we'll be able to. God will inspire me to say something that you know, some people can be able to take home from this. And it was explained to me in the beginning that Bill W. is you know, was a co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the big book was written with 100 men and women, and you know, it was kind of cool to see that how Bill writes. He's a very ambiguous writer, and he likes to, you know, take a number of different points or try to stress an idea. He would take a number of different ways to or illustrations to be able to get that point across. And I don't know about you guys, but I sure know in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous that there's, and you know, we're always trying to teach in a different way, and we all learn differently, and you know, it's always better to come up with, you know, the solution stays the same and the message stays the same, but how it can be carried across can be different, you know. And you know, I was born in Stony Plain, Alberta. I born in a Catholic family. Parents, good parents. You know, we had a pretty normal upbringing. You know, I was promiscuous at a very young age. I just had so many nameless fears. You know, and I just didn't think that I could trust many people. I didn't understand, and I couldn't identify with these fears. I just know that I had so many of these nameless fears. And the first drink, you know, that the first time I drank it took all that away. I can't really describe it except for, you know, and that's what the first drink did for me, you know, and it took all that away, and I was able to, my skin felt like it fit, and you know, whether I fit in or not, I didn't care, you know, and that was just the way it was, and I was always so worried about what other people thought of me, you know, and the first drink took that away, and it basically distorted my perception of reality and eluded me from a reality eventually as I progressed in my alcoholism. I had an intuition very early in my, I guess, getting loaded career or drinking career that, you know, I had this profound thought. It was like, you know, if you go down this path and continue to do the things you're doing, you're going to have trouble with this for a very long time. And, you know, I you know, it was crystal clear, and it was just immediately dispelled, and I immediately rationalized and justified the things that I was doing and my actions. You know, like it can't happen to me, and you know, I'm too young. I'll stop just before I lose control. You know, and all these different lies that I told myself, and maybe just to give you an illustration of where I was in my drinking, a little bit into it. I was drinking at a pub there, and a couple days before, I was talking with a member of AA, and I was thinking, you know, planning and scheming on ways to get more and to be able to use more. And I figured, if I take my truck and if I light my truck on fire, I'll be able to collect the insurance money. I didn't know why I didn't sell my truck in the first place. It doesn't make sense to me, but this was a brilliant idea. I figured, so if I light my truck on fire, I'll be able to collect the insurance money, and then I can go and go on this 2-week bender and just be, rolling on dubs. But I was at this pub and I remember drinking this beer or whatever I was drinking, and it was just going down like water, and I was just pounding this stuff back, and all of a sudden I was picking fights with all my friends. I was in conflict with my brother. We were outside kind of tussling around. I remember that night I tried to call my ex-girlfriend. Poor girl, my cousin pulled up. He was a little bit late to the party, and I was always just trying to get warmed up, and I always overshot, my cousin, he pulled up, and I got all this stereo equipment in my arms, and I'm robbing these vehicles all around this little pub, I got radars and satellite radios and a CD deck, and he said, "What are you doing?" I didn't really know, and I asked him if I could put this stuff in his truck, and that's all I remember. The night I woke up at a buddy's place, and I was looking for my truck, and I didn't know where I put my truck, So I figured it must have been stolen. So I called the cops, and I reported it stolen. I filled out a police report. I called the insurance company and reported it stolen with them. And then I was at an AA meeting that night, and the guy that I was told I would start my truck on fire and collect the insurance money. I told him I lost my truck, and he said, "Well, there was a white GMC. It was the truck I was driving at the time." And he said, "That was on fire just last night in front of, there was a white GMC. I don't know if it was yours, but it was on fire in between Stony and Spruce." And I'm thinking, oh no, what did I do, man? So I didn't want to, make any, I didn't want to go over there or nothing, so I just, kept looking for my truck, and my truck turned up 3 days later. I found it. It was way down a back alley and a number of blocks away from my friend's house there. But this is the insanity. I just didn't really have a clue, and I was just trying to have fun, just trying to have fun, and made a lot of friends that night, as you can see. I couldn't handle money, I really couldn't. I'd work a number of different jobs, man. I would work everywhere. I would work on the pipelines, on the rigs, or whatever, and anywhere that would pay me, and I would make a bit of money, and I would be gone, and they would have no track of me, and well, that's the way I was. I couldn't handle money at all, I questioned, I really questioned my sanity. I questioned if I were a psychopath, because I really didn't know, I thought I was absolutely, the things I was doing, and I thought I might be a psychopath. I entered Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 18 years old. I sobered up when I was 22. I'm 25 today. I've had 3 years of continuous sobriety, and thanks to the grace of God and the fellowship and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. But when I got here, man, I couldn't tell the difference between the truth and the false. Maybe I could, maybe I just didn't care. And that was, when you're right in that's scary. That's a very scary place to be. I was through 4 treatment centers. Every time I went there, I was waiting for the magic wand to come over and be waved over my head and to cure me, or they'd come out with this pill and they'd give me this pill, and I would be able to drink safely again. I was waiting for the quick fix, and it never came. I thought I was supposed to get involved in this one treatment center. It was out of Calgary, and this treatment center was for a year long, and I just couldn't see myself staying sober for a year. I couldn't see it, and I thought that if I could go to treatment and if they kept me there for a year, that I would be able to get a little bit of sobriety and maybe a foundation under my feet, and I thought that I would never own anything worth anything of value anymore, because I never, as soon as I had anything, I would always sell it or give it away or pawn it, and I thought I would have to have like a bodyguard. The book talks about, we thought he had to have a bodyguard to walk around with him the whole time, because he just couldn't stay sober on his own will, and that was me. That was absolutely me. I lost the power of choice in drink. And there was, at times, there was no mental defense against the first one. I was still living with my parents at the time, and I knew I was on my last legs there, and I came home one weekend from a bender, and my dad had my bags packed, and he asked me where I wanted to go, and I didn't really know. He took me to the homeless shelter, the Herb Jameson Center downtown. And I just remember when he dropped me off, he was crying, and we were both crying, and I didn't know what was going on, and I really wanted to stop, but at that time I really couldn't, and that was the first time that I realized that this is serious, and I probably lost the power of choice. I stayed in the homeless shelter for 7 months. They had a treatment deal there or whatever, and I followed the program. I went into transitional housing, and I went back out again after 7 months. My last drink, I was actually attending school. It was shortly after that. I was attending NAIT. I was a first year millwright at NAIT, and studying it. And I got through a couple of weeks of the course, and I was off to the races again. I found myself in a crack shack downtown in someone's basement. There were guys that were beating me up. I was threatened that I was going to get tied up in a basement and raped. Everyone was carrying knives, and I come to the door and I'd get my face beat up, and I just couldn't, all this stuff, man, and I couldn't stop from going to this place, because that's where I got loaded, and I'm an alcoholic, but when I drink, it distorts my perception of reality and inevitably leads me to drugs, and I had to come to the source, and I'm an alcoholic, but when I drink, it distorts my perception of reality, and it inevitably leads me back to that first drink, I pulled a job from the Millwrights Hall. I'm a member with the Millwrights Hall, and I actually went to work in Medicine Hat. I had to get out of the city. I just figured, maybe the geological cure or whatever would fix me, and I took off to Medicine Hat. This guy, he picked me up. I didn't have a vehicle. I didn't have a penny to my name, and I remember he picked me up, and he drove me down there. He put my room on his credit card. He bought me groceries. He took me to work every day with him, and I was just like, how do you find a guy like this? And I knew him a little bit, but he knew a little bit about me, and he knew a little bit of where I was going, and a couple things that I've been through, and just out of the goodness of this guy's heart, he kind of trusted me and was giving me another chance, and I'd go to work 5 days a week, and I'd walk to a meeting every day. It was a 20-minute walk, and I'd walk to a meeting every night, and I'd change the garbages and wash the coffee cups at the end, and then I'd walk back. And it was winter time, and sometimes it was snowing, and I just knew I had to go to a meeting. I found this one guy, and he wanted me to write down, how the first time I drank, why I drank, how it made me feel. He wanted me to write down halfway in my drinking career, how it escalated, how it made me feel, why I drank, what was the outcome, for the first time I drank, the middle, and the last time I drank. And I was able to see the disease as it's described in the big book. I was able to see it progress in my life. I was able to see the obsession of the mind, taking over, and I was able to see how the allergy works. That once I put it into my body, it becomes virtually impossible to stop. So I couldn't stay sober because of my mind, and I couldn't stop because of my body, and I was absolutely powerless over alcohol. I like to. It was described to me in the beginning. We have a daily reprieve, contingent on our spiritual condition, and it's almost like we're sick people, but we can recover from this disease. And it's almost like a person with diabetes. You can't see it, but you just know it's there, and they just need to get their daily insulin, and that's what it's like for me. The 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous is my daily insulin that allows me to stay sober one day at a time. And, I stopped running from everything and all this chaos that I was creating in my life, and it's almost like the avalanche. You can run and run and run, and then all of a sudden you run out of breath and you can't run no more, and you stop, and this avalanche just covers you. And life wasn't peachy for me when I first sobered up. It wasn't the greatest thing, but I had a lot of stuff going on. And that's just the way things went. So lack of power was my problem, and I had to find a power, in which I could live. I was then told to write a wanted higher power ad, and I believed in God. I was raised in a Roman Catholic home, but my God wasn't working for me, so I had to come up with a new one, and so I started writing this wanted higher power ad, and I actually found it there the other day. I've added a couple things to it, and if you don't mind, I'm going to just read out a couple of things. I had been involved in AA, for a number of years, and I was trying to get this thing, and I knew I seen that other people were doing it, so it gave me a little bit of hope that if you can get sober doing it this way, then maybe I could, and I just wanted to try and hone my beliefs to what the big book believed, and maybe then I could get sober, and my beliefs of God are a lot different today than they were when I came in. And a friend says, I believe in a God today that doesn't forgive me, and you kind of think, well, why would you believe in a God that doesn't forgive you? And he says, because he didn't condemn me in the first place, and I think that's 100% the truth, and we make our own problems, and we really, I do it to myself, I do it to myself, and I kind of like that. And there's so many different things that if a guy becomes honest, willing, and open-minded, this program can take you so many different places. But I wrote down, wanted higher power must discipline me to recover from a hopeless state of mind and body, to change my feeling, attitude, and outlook on life, to provide an immediate and overwhelming God consciousness, to seed honesty, willingness, and open-mindedness, must create opportunity to be a productive member of society. I never thought I could ever be a productive member of society, and that was important to me. Must be all-inclusive, never exclusive. I was sick and tired of all the debates. What's right? What's wrong? This religion is right. That's wrong. And I was just sick and tired of it. I wanted just to believe in a God that was all-inclusive, never exclusive. Willingness to face my problems in the light of AA's experience. A power that speaks to me through others, people, and leads me to a place safe and protected. I would like to believe in a power that inspires me to place the needs of others ahead of my own. That will be with me in all my activities when I ask. A power that is understanding and has a sense of humor. Gives me the ability to tell the difference between the truth and the false. That helps my peace of mind and prosperity. A power that inspires me with intuitive thoughts. It reminds me to pause when agitated or doubtful. To place awareness in my recovery that I know I'm not running the show, and constantly remind me to say to myself, "Thy will, not mine, be done." I believe in a power that could and would if you were sought, and I believe that God will do for me what I can't do for myself, and you people. A number of AA members, they just asked me a question point blank. Do you now believe, or are you willing to believe? And it really can be that simple, So I, even though I wrote down my characteristics of my higher power, I really thought that I found God, but I really didn't find God. I just thought that I did, and I found God later on in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was able to, and maybe not even God, maybe it was this power, and really step 2 is not about God. It's just about finding a power, and lack of power was my dilemma, and I had a step 1 experience, and I became open-minded, and I was willing to grasp on anything, I really had two alternatives, and I can go on, I can accept spiritual help because I honestly wanted to and was willing to make the effort, or else I can continue to go the way I was going, and that way, I knew that nothing good was to come of it, and a friend in AA, that he just describes it in a way, it was almost like a fork in the road. I didn't know where the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous were taking me, but I just didn't know it was directly off the cliff I was taking myself, and that was good enough for me. I was happy with that. I came in, I had two misconceptions. One, I thought I knew what God was, and I really didn't, and I thought I knew, what an alcoholic was, and those really were two huge misconceptions that, I have a lot better understanding of what that is today. I was explained, there really is two Alcoholics Anonymous. There is the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I tried to stay sober on for the past 3 or 4 years of trying to get sober, and I couldn't do it. I had to get involved in working the 12 steps, and I had to get my feet moving and to get to work. And they asked me, either God is everything or He is nothing, and what is my choice to be? And these things are so simple, how the book talks about these things, and simple, not easy. It's just the solution is simple, but it's not easy. The minute I was able to see, it talks about in page 60 to 63 of our big book, and the minute that I was finally able to see how I can be the actor and how I can control and manipulate things, in my own life. And it wasn't just, lip service, or it wasn't just, I'm saying I got it, but I really don't. I was able to actually see it in my day-to-day living and in my actions and how I'm dealing with things. And that was incredible to me, because that was just the hugest thing, man, because you can't fix nothing you can't see, right? And I was finally able to see that, and I thought that was the most coolest thing. I was the alcoholic who prayed and prayed and prayed and just expected God to do the work for me, and the third step prayer says, God, I offer myself to Thee to build with me and to do with me as I will. And this is 50-50 deal. God's not going to do for me what I can't do for myself, and I really needed to do the things and take responsibility for myself. And the toughest thing in recovery was to get sober doing it someone else's way, because I had all these ideas, man. I had all these different plans and designs for my life, and I would come up, it's almost like being in the ring, being in the ring with King Alcohol, and I'd come up with this idea, and I'd go around with King Alcohol, and he'd knock my ass out, and I'd be on the ground, and I'd be out for a little bit, and all of a sudden, no mental defense, and I lost the power of choice, and there I go again. I got this other idea on how to recover, and once again I'm knocked out, and that's the way it was, and I really, the toughest thing I think in recovery was to do it someone else's way, because you get involved and they say you got to get a sponsor, and how does this guy know me? Like, what does this guy know? He's never known me. I got to call this guy. I didn't even know him, and I got to follow his advice. Like, what is this thing? But that was really tough for me, and the foundation of steps 1, 2, and 3 were absolutely critical. I really didn't know what my will in my life was, and it was until I went through up to step 7, and I had a bit of a more better understanding of what my will in my life really was. There really is a difference between belief and faith and trust, and I heard one time that say a guy picks up a newspaper and he sees on the front page that this guy's a tightrope walker, and he walks across skyscrapers in Edmonton, and you go to that place on the belief that this guy can walk across these skyscrapers, right? And you see him do it. You see him do it once, and okay, well, let's see it do it again. And then he does it again, and now you have faith that he can do it again. First you're going on belief. Now you see him do it a couple times. Now you have faith he can do it. And he grabs a wheelbarrow and he says, "You think I can do it?" And he walks this tightrope on this wheelbarrow, And you have faith he can do it. You've seen him do it. And then he asks you, "Well, do you trust I can do it?" And you say, "Well, yeah, I trust you can do it." And he says, "Well, jump in." So so there's a big difference between belief and faith, and faith and trust. And by this time, I'm coming back from Medicine Hat, and I got to keep going, because I would just do the 1, 2, 3 shuffle, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and I would stop at 4, or I would stop at 9, and I wasn't able to stay sober. I knew I had to get more, and I would try to do this step 4, and I made huge progress, and it was absolutely incredible. Part of my recovery, just sitting down, one alcoholic with another, with my sponsor at the time, and to go through this step 4 process. I was able to write down my angers or my fears, what the cause was, how it affected me. I was able to see, how these things affected me, and then finally I was able to see my part. I was able to finally see my part. I'm telling you, I couldn't see it. I couldn't see it for the life of me. I tried, and it was all that guy's fault, and I would be blaming, and my fingers would be pointing all over the place, and resentment is a reoccurring feeling, and as it reoccurs and it becomes, I'm able to turn it from a mountain into a molehill really quick, or a molehill into a mountain real quick, and these feelings that I had, they're real, but they're just irrational, but fancied or real, they had the power to actually kill me, and I had to be rid of them, and I was finally able to see some truth and some facts, because my drinking was really but a symptom, and I had to get down to the causes and conditions, and so getting down to more of the facts, I was able to see and begin to take responsibility and not be the victim all the time, because all the time, man, I was just walking around and always playing the victim. Always, it was always done to me, and I was always pointing the finger, and, my sponsor told me, victims don't recover, and I couldn't afford to be a victim, more. I experienced enough pain, and I really wanted to get sober, and so I really tried to begin to take responsibility for my own actions, and that was a big step, That was a huge beginning, just to be able to do that, I would call him on a couple different occasions, and this guy did that to me, and he said that to me, and oh, well, you don't have to be so oversensitive, but this guy hurt my one feeling, and I was able to see that I was an alcoholic a little bit on a deeper level. I was able to see that I'm not so unique as I thought I was, and I thought nobody could understand how I feel, and I was able to see that I just wasn't so unique. Beginning to see a little bit of patterns, in my actions and thinking, and I was starting to analyze my motives for doing things a little bit more, I would always assume things, I would always read minds. I don't know if you guys do this every once in a while, but I'm a mind reader, and I would make these assumptions, and it was shown to me in the back of the book, there's one principle who will hold a man in everlasting ignorance, and that principle is contempt prior to investigation, and that just brought me to don't judge a book by its cover. Don't just assume things until you know the facts, until you absolutely are 100% sure. And that gets me out of trouble sometimes. And I thought that was pretty cool. I was able to see a little bit better why I thought the way I thought and why I acted the way I acted. A number of times I would put everyone on pedestals. My sponsor and a couple of people in my home group. I would put these people on pedestals, and and they're only human, and they're not perfect, and they're going to fail. But when they failed, I would be absolutely devastated. But I was able to see that it's not right to put these people on pedestals, and my real reliance must be on God, and I was able to see that in this fourth step, I was able to see numerous times that I placed myself in a position to be hurt, based on self. I made decisions based on self, which later placed me in a position to be hurt. Time and time again, man, it was a lot of it coming down to selfishness, expectations. I had such high expectations of everyone and of myself, and I had to begin to be a little bit more accepting of people, places, to not take myself so seriously all the time, to be able to just go about my day and be able to laugh at some of my mistakes that a guy makes, or just to cut up and have fun. And I was given, it's outlined, there's a prayer for fear and a prayer for anger, and I was able to finally see in the book and be able to recite these prayers every once in a while, when these things would crop up. And judgment, I would judge people, and I was absolutely terrified because I was scared. I was just a bad person because I would judge these people, and if I wanted to get sober, I had to quit judging for some reason. That's what I thought, and I'm talking to my sponsor about this stuff, and he says, judgment is a natural human instinct, and in order to judge, everyone judges, and everyone does judge. It's wrong for me to get to a place where I'm condemning and criticizing people, but the judgments I have are absolutely, everyone judges, and I need to judge the healthy people, but towards the non-healthy people, in order for me to stay sober, So this is an important thing that I need to do, and it really can get off track if I start criticizing or condemning people. And a friend talks about, he says that he sees people in more shades of gray, and we're all children of God, and we each have the right to be here. Nobody's higher or nobody's lower. We just start to see things in a little bit more shades of gray, and what other people think of me is none of my business, and I was able to see like these facts and this truth about myself was incredible. It was a good beginning to recovery. And I always thought about myself, occasionally I thought what you were thinking about me, but usually it was it was all about me. I was in Medicine Hat there 1 year later, and the first year it was okay because I just needed to work, and I was on fire watch. That was my duty. Hey, so my second year back, I was a year sober now, and I'm thinking I'm going to get all the good jobs, and you know what? They put me on fire watch again. So I call my sponsor. They got me on fire watch, and I'm just pissed off, and he says, he talked me down and kind of calmed me down and said the right things, and I went back to work the next day, and I said, I talked to the foreman. I said, you know what, I'm going to be the best damn fire watch you ever seen, and the next day I wasn't a fire watch, he had me on tools, and I got to work on all different kinds of doing alignments and bearings and conveyors, and I thought that was pretty damn cool, to be able to talk about these secrets, because our secrets keep us sick, and in order to be able to get this stuff out in the light, and to be able to just get some truth, it was absolutely incredible. And I think that's if a guy comes in here and he's contemplating whether he's a psychopath or not, or that has the ability to differentiate between the truth and the false, but to get these facts out on the table was just a huge part for my sobriety. And we all have natural desires. It's when these desires exceed what they're meant to be. That's when I get myself into quite a bit of trouble. And I continue to pray for willingness to relieve me of my character defects, and continually reminded, the difference between the boys and the men is the difference between someone who's willing to look at themselves and to question their motives and their natural desires, and to try and look for these instincts that over exceed what they're supposed to, and I just continue to pray for the willingness to do that. Working the steps are uncomfortable for me, and a lot of times it's just a different way of looking at things. It's a different way of dealing with things, and it's almost like asking a fish to jump out of the water and walk across the desert. It's just 100% unnatural for me, and that's what it was like. I tell my sponsor, I've told my sponsor a couple times, Mike, if I could have done it alone, I probably would have, but I couldn't, and I really needed your help, and I tried, I really tried, and no offense, but I wouldn't be here if I didn't have to be, and I proved to myself time and time again, man, that I needed to be here, and if I could stay sober by myself, I would have, and no offense to anyone in this room or anyone, but that's the truth, and I'm sure if you're honest with yourself, you could probably say the same thing, but I try and keep things simple, and it really comes down to my selfishness, my dishonesty, my resentment, and my fear, and try and continue to watch for these things, God is able to do amazing things in my life once I become willing to help Him help me, He begins to turn these liabilities into priceless assets, and I'm able to see, begin to change through these steps, and I'm able to see that even some of my bad things are assets to other people. How can I relate with anyone? God's not going to make me perfect, and why would He? Because I couldn't relate to nobody, and I keep making mistakes and doing these things and questioning why I did this, because when I figure that out, I'm better able and more useful to other people, and the solution is simple, but it's not easy, There's this battle between two wolves. There's this native Cherokee Indian and his grandson, and he's telling his grandson a story, and he says that, there's this battle between inside a man, and it's a battle between two wolves, and there's the one wolf, and he's fighting fierce, and he's got a bunch of anger, fear, resentment, jealousy, dishonesty, and he's fighting against this other wolf, and this other wolf is purity and love and compassion and self-sacrificing, and the grandson's looking at his grandpa, and he goes, "But Grandpa, which one wins?" And the grandpa looks down at his grandson, and he says, "The one you feed." And isn't that the truth? The wolf that wins for me is the one that I feed, and the one that I continue to feed with the good and the love and the self-sacrificing, and that's the one that seems to be more predominant in my life. So I'm beginning to pray for the willingness to make some of these amends that I have to make, and I'm no matter what, I gotta be willing. Whether a guy's going to jail, whether a guy's got to do whatever, as long as I'm willing to make these amends, and I got this list, and my amends list comes from my step 4, and I'm on my way to go make some amends, and in the first little bit, that my amends process was pretty simple. I just started showing up to work, and that was a big step for me. I started to pay my bills, because I never used to do that. I'm just coming off IFS actually with my insurance company, middle of May. So that's I've been on IFS for 3 years. That's a 20% higher premium, and I just never paid the insurance company. I didn't think that I needed to pay them, and for months on end, I would just be in my delusional state and all loaded, and I didn't pay my insurance company. I stopped putting empty envelopes in the bank machine, trying to trick them that I was able to take out some money, you know, and in the beginning it was all simple stuff, you know, but it was big stuff for me, and I started to pay off creditors because I owed a bunch of money to creditors, and I was driving my dad's car to work one morning. I was between cars and between jobs at the time, and you know, I hit this guardrail. I was actually smoking in his car, and he told me not to smoke in his car. But what can I do? You know, I'm not perfect, and I'm smoking in his car, and I throw this cigarette butt out the window, and it lands in the back seat. So I'm looking in the back seat, trying to find this cigarette butt, and I smash right in this guardrail, man. It folds the car like right up. I'm lucky to be alive. I broke my sternum, and you know, I was able to pay for my dad's car. You know, I was able to say, you know, I wrecked your car, and here's $2,500. You know, and I would have never done that had I been loaded. You know, I don't know if you guys can relate, but I used to steal, and I'm a thief. You know, I'm a hard thief, and it was, some of it was pretty petty stuff, but I would steal these water bottles from IGA and Co-op, and I would walk out the door and I would empty them, and then I would bring them back for $20, you know, and I was able to go out with a couple of buddies and go at night on the town with these $20 water bottles, and I was able to go back to the Co-op and IGA and you know, admit my wrong and to give them restitution and stop stealing water bottles, you know, so I'm not a water bottle thief anymore, you know. But there was one time I was at the registries and I had a speeding ticket, you know, and I blew up on this girl at the clerk gay and this girl at the counter, and you know, it was all her fault, and I'm the victim, and you know, I was able to go back with her and to say that how I reacted to that situation was wrong, you know, and every time I go in there, I'm reminded, because I don't want to make these amends again, you know, and I'm reminded that, I better just pause one more second, you know, before I open my mouth, you know, and I'm able to get a little bit more clarity in how I react to things. I started giving charity donations to maybe some amends that I was willing to make some amends, and you know, my sponsor pulled the reins back on me, and again, I'm you know, I got to do things. I can't continue to do things my way, so I listened, and I started making donations to different charities. I've started to volunteer some time at the church. 6 months later, I was filling out this late registration form, and I was actually, you know, I was volunteering with the church, and then all of a sudden I was unable or unqualified to volunteer with the church, and that hurt deep. I had a talk with a youth counselor, and I told him that I was gonna, you know, pursue this, and I was gonna fight this, because, you know, I really enjoyed what I was doing, and I really enjoyed the sacrifice that I was able to give. I just felt a lot better the couple hours of service that I was able to do there, and but at the time I told him I was going to get more involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was going to throw myself harder into maybe things that I can do there in the time. And, you know, 6 months later, I was back and able to you know, get into service again with the church, and I thought that was pretty cool. It was something that I really loved to do, and I really got a lot out of in the time. And you know, I started writing letters to my mom and my dad, and I was writing these letters to my parents. I remember just tears, man, just tears rolling down my face, and I was able to take them out for dinner. I took my dad to a hockey game, and I got him a nice card, and I gave him this letter, you know, and he just says he's so proud of me, and you know, gave him a hug, and you know, I took my mom out for dinner and gave her a letter, and you know, just these things, these moments that a guy is able to experience and really feel some love, you know. There were times when I would call my sponsor, and you know what my family did, and you know what my mom did, and he would just say, you know, look at all the love, you know, look at all the love, and Thanks for that, because there I was surrounded by lots of love, and I just couldn't understand a lot of times. I was in a shopping, whether it was Walmart or whatever, but I was looking at these cards for some reason. I seen this one card that had this herd of sheep, and there was one black one in the middle, and I thought, well, there's me and the black sheep, But it was no secret, my family all knew that I was the black sheep of the family, and they knew that I thought that, they knew that's the way I felt, and I just remember my grandparents, they would pray for me and pray for me and pray for me, and it was just so incredible that their devotion for prayer, and I just wanted to maybe just to give them this card and to tell them that I don't feel like a black sheep no more, and just to say some really kind words, and I was able to give my grandma and grandpa a hug and to tell them I love them, and I would have never done that had I been drinking either or been loaded, There's a couple of relationships, a relationship with my dad and with my sister, that there was a lot of pain. There was a lot of pain, and these were probably, the closest relationships that were hurt the most. And those relationships today are the strongest relationships I have, and that's not me, that's the power that I found, and that's got to be a God, and my parents are the most self-sacrificing people that I know. They are they're very selfless people, and I'm able to see that. I got married September 26th, 2009, to my beautiful wife here in the front, and that was an incredible day, and I would have never been there. I would have missed it all. And my parents were able to be there and to experience that, and I think there was just this healing power that was there, and my dad told me after, he just explained this feeling of this power or whatever that was there, and it was just this healing effect that he was able to feel, and I was with one of my older brothers on a canoe trip. It was on a stag, and my older brother, he shows up with a cooler full of beer and hard alcohol, no food, and I'm thinking, oh no, well, at least you got your priorities straight, At the end of the canoe trip, I had enough, and I probably said a couple things that I regret a little bit today, but maybe God was using me as an instrument, as someone to bring a little bit of truth, and someone to show him, or not show him, but just to be able to, I don't know. And I'm working with my sponsor on it. I'm thinking, I should be making amends. And he says, that this is the way it is right now. But I would have never been able to go on this canoe trip and to be able to stay sober without the help that I found in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've heard a number of times in AA, the biggest amends I owe is to myself, and that's not true for me, but the amends that I make to other people and the people that I have harmed, that's the byproduct of making amends to myself, and that if that's my number one sole objective, then I'm on the wrong path, really, I pray for the willingness, and as I become willing, 100% willing, and I'm ready to do some of these amends, I got to really be conscious and paying attention to what my sponsor has to say, because sometimes I can provide more harm than I'm doing good, and even though I'm willing to make some amends just don't need to be made, and maybe they don't, and maybe it's just not time yet, maybe it's just not time. Continue to be able to take personal inventory, and I don't know why anyone would want to do that unless they've experienced a little bit of a little bit of freedom, from the remaining steps, and I guess I got to continue this stuff. We don't graduate, and yeah, it's a continued deal, I guess, and I had a misconception before of what freedom was, and I always thought freedom was being able to do anything you wanted whenever you wanted, and I don't believe that today. I believe it's almost like a train on the tracks, and the train is on a path, and the train is doing what the train is supposed to be doing. The train is on the path. If the train jumps off the track and starts going, blazing his own trail, the train's not going to be very free, and that's almost like what it's like for me. If I'm blazing my own trail and doing, following my own ideas and doing exactly the way I think I should be doing, and not following or seeking God or following what's written in the book, I'm not going to be very free. This whole thing is almost like we're in just this big rock tumbler, and the steps, over time, we kind of the fellowship we're clashing together, and we start to knock off the rough edges on our we're each individual rocks, and we start to grind off these rough edges, and we add the steps, and then all of a sudden, we're starting to shine a little bit, and we're smooth and shiny rocks. It's almost like that. I don't know. I would always read this line in step 10, and we begin to grow in understanding and effectiveness in others, and I always wonder, what does that mean? How do we grow in understanding and effectiveness of others? And I think, and I'm not saying I know what that means, but I'm just saying I think I know what that means, and and what it means to me right now is that, as I make mistakes and as I continue to question the path that I'm on, I be able to grow in understanding and effectiveness for others, and be able to hone how I can carry this message, and maybe I didn't react the way I should have, or maybe I should have done this, and those are the results of, I guess, of step 10 and 11, and step 10 promise, we begin to feel like we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. I never felt safe. I never felt protected when I got to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and sometimes I just think that I don't really have time to meditate, but that my day goes so much better when I'm actually able to take a couple of minutes out of the day and to pause, to continue to ask for guidance and strength, and my day goes so much better. There really isn't an end to this. There's, all inclusive. If I'm getting bored in Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm not seeing the picture, I don't think, and I've just been able to see so many incredible things, and be able to experience just loads of different avenues a guy can get into, and to become a little bit more of service, or it really is an AA kindergarten for me to spirituality. Alcoholics Anonymous is really, we're not this huge spiritual giant. It's really an AA kindergarten. I was in millwright class here, and I was doing this alignment, or studying how to do an alignment, and I got 95% on the theory part, and I get into the shop, and I'm supposed to do this alignment, and I should know how to do this alignment, and I got 95% theory, and I can't do this alignment, and pretty much the instructor was able to kind of guide me in which tool to pick up at the time in order to put it into action. And that's exactly what a sponsor is for me, because I can have 100% knowledge in the big book and know 100% of what I'm supposed to do and not know how to apply it, into my daily life today. I'm, God willing, I'll be a fourth-year apprentice at the end of this year. In this last year, I've been able to experience and go to a couple of AA roundups. I went to an AA men's retreat in Jasper. That was, the most serene spot that I've been to in the mountains. I was able to spend some time in BC with my wife's family. I went to Mexico right after completing my third-year apprenticeship at NAIT. I went to Mexico with my wife and my family. Today I own my own home and I haven't defaulted on any of my payments. That's incredible. For me, that's a huge deal. At our we choreographed our first dance, and it went absolutely, like, we actually we practiced. We put about 6 hours or whatever into this first dance, and we paid for someone to kind of watch us and step through our first dance at our wedding, and I wouldn't trade that for nothing, because it was fun. It was a little bit nerve-wracking and frustrating at times, but the end result, it was pretty incredible. I did a couple of home rentals at my house, and I was able to, a couple, my dad and myself and a couple of Milen's brothers and sisters came over and built a deck at my wife's place. Went on a honeymoon to Bali, Indonesia, and for 10 days or a week, and we got to spend 3 days in Vancouver, before we went with my cousins. I got to get a little bit more active in my home group, and in District 10, we got this cool deal going on right now. It's a PI committee, public information, where we got 2 schools that we're supposed to speak to, 2 high schools, and we got a couple of members on the committee there, and that's just one of the most inspiring things, and something that gives me so much more motivation, and to be able to give back, and to be able to say that there is a solution, and maybe lay down a couple of the spiritual tools, for these high school kids. My wife was pregnant for 9 months, actually, and that's how long it takes, I guess. And I didn't know how anyone could ever think a pregnant woman is beautiful. I just didn't understand it at first, and we're driving from Banff, my cousin's wedding there, and I'm looking at my wife, and she's just going to give birth in like a couple of weeks time, and I got tears running down my eyes, and I can only look at her and say that she's the most beautiful woman that I've ever seen, and I absolutely 100% felt that, and I just didn't understand, and my wife was the most beautiful pregnant woman that I have ever seen, We have a newborn baby. She was born March 25th, 11:44 a.m. She was 8 pounds 6 ounces. Her name's Vienna. She's just a beautiful girl, and we're going to get to do so many cool things together, and it's just really the beginning. Peace of mind is a priceless gift, and alcoholics get to experience great suffering and great love, and I've experienced just a tremendous amount of love, and I'm so proud of her, I'm so proud of both of them, and all this that's I've been able to do and experience and be a part of, and I want more. I would just want more, I want to be able to work with one alcoholic, with another alcoholic, and that's really how it begins. I want to be able to give this away, It was described, there's an alcoholic who's walking down this street, and he falls into this pit, and this huge pit, and he can't get out, and he looks up, and there's a doctor there, and he's asking for help, and this doctor's writing him a bunch of prescriptions, and he throws him down in the pit, and he says, when you get out, get your leg looked at, and fill these prescriptions, you'll be okay. The doctor can't help him. He goes on his way, right? There's a lawyer that walks by, and he says, this pit shouldn't be here in the first place. I don't know why you fell down here. Throws his card down there and says, when you get out, we're going to get a lawsuit on this guy, and give me a call. There's a priest that walks by, and the priest, gives him a sign of the cross, says a prayer, and that's really all he can do. He's got to give a service in 10 minutes, so the priest goes on his way, and there's an alcoholic that's walking by, and he sees the man down in the pit, and he jumps down in the pit with him. And the guy looks at him like he's absolutely nuts. And the guy says, what are you doing down here? And this guy looks at him and he says, I've been here before and I know the way out. If I want to get my car fixed, I go to a mechanic. If I want to, get surgery, I go to a surgeon. If I want to recover from alcoholism, I want to talk to another alcoholic. And I want to be able to give back what I was freely given. I was just one more thing, and I'm going to be out of here. It's called. It's just a poem, and I just think it's the greatest poem. It's called "The Touch of the Master's Hand." It was battered and scarred, and the auctioneer thought it hardly worth his while to waste his time on the old violin, but he held it up with a smile. "What am I bid, good people?" he cried. "Who starts the bidding for me? $1, $1. Do I hear two? $2. Who makes it three? $3 once, $3 twice, going for three, but no." From the room far back a grey-haired man came forward and picked up the bow. Then wiping the dust from the old violin and tightening up the strings, he played a melody pure and sweet as the angel sings. The music ceased, and the auctioneer, with a voice that was quiet and low, said, "What now I bid for this old violin," as he held it aloft with his bow. 1,000, 1,000, do I hear two? 2,000, who makes it three? 3,000 once, 3,000 twice, going and gone, said he. The auctioneer cheered, the audience cheered, but some of them cried, "We just do not understand what changed its worth." Swift came the reply, "The touch of the master's hand." And many a man with life out of tune, battered with bourbon and gin, its auctioneer cheap to the thoughtless crowd, much like that old violin. A mess of pottage, a glass of wine, a game when he travels on. He's going once, he is going twice, he's going and almost gone. The master comes, and the foolish crowd could never quite understand the worth of the soul and the change that is wrought by the touch of the master's hand. I think that's a pretty powerful poem, and thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this roundup, and hope everyone enjoys their weekend, and God bless.
Thank you for listening to Sober Sunrise. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give it a thumbs up, as it will help share the message. Until next time, have a great day.